Okay, shall we? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to those who showed up in person and all our friends and colleagues who are following us on Facebook Live. It's 11 a.m. in Bangkok, Tuesday, February the 8th, 2022, and we are here to launch this report by the Burma Human Rights Network. We also have dreams, ongoing safety and quality of life issues for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. I should introduce myself. I'm the immoderate moderator, Debbie Stothard, founder and coordinator of ALTSEAN Burma, the alternative ASEAN network on Burma. Without further ado, we have a lineup of some key activists with very different perspectives on on this topic, on this report. And I'm actually going to introduce them. There's U Chaw Win, Executive Director of the Burma Human Rights Network. There's Haji Ismail, Managing Director of the Rohingya Peace Network. And joining us online is Phil Robertson, who really does not need much of an introduction from Human Rights Watch. So in that order, I'm going to, Phil, you look more handsome and your face is so much bigger.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'm going to, without much further ado, I am actually going to introduce U Chaw Win, who is going to give us a rundown of this report. It's 55 pages, very humanely laid out. I say humanely because, you know, even if you're old and you need glasses, you can actually read it. And it has, of course, an executive summary. So for those of us who have been following the situation on Burma and the Rohingya situation very closely, whether it's a few months or a few decades, this is the report you need to read. Over to you, Chaw Win.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending here today and also joining from online today, our launch. This is the report, the reason why we drafted this report. As BHRN is operating across Burma and also in Bangladesh camps and the Thai-Burma border, all the area locations where human rights violations are heavily going on with Rohingyas and other Muslim minorities. Our aim is to tell the world what the real picture is after 4 or 5 years of the genocide happened in Rakhine state. So this is the people who are genocide survivors, traumatized, and they are continue their life very peacefully while they are struggling so many problems and issues that have caused them to live in this way today, what we are seeing them. And one of the very unfortunate situation is the war is forgotten. The Rohingya issue is forgotten. Nobody talk about anymore. Nobody raised enough anymore, and their life is going on. And one of the very slightly thing is those Rohingya people who migrated in 2017 and gave birth children, they are now school age, and there is no school, and the school is banned in the camp. So imagine a generation has been destroyed and destroyed again and again. And this generation, how are we going to repair this? This is the duty, moral duty for each and every human being on earth. So we decided that, okay, we need to tell the world with this report, with academically, with we researched properly and highlighted all the situation, and this report is echoing the voice of the voiceless Rohingya people in the camp. So we want every one of you to hear, to listen, what's going on behind what we didn't see so many and we didn't hear so many things. So this report, the methodology, if the report is we conducted this research, which our BHRN team in the camp, from October 2020 to June 2021. During this period, we have interviewed 29 refugees. and living in 10 different refugee camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. The interview conducted face-to-face and in Rohingya language by one of our researcher at a time, and the native speakers, and also we receive consent from the participants. But we always withhold the names and details of our interviewees because of the any repercussions and for their security. And all the refugees we interviewed are mentioned by gender. There is a reason why we do this, because the female are now one of the oppressed community in Rohingya community, and their plight is terrible. To tell you this, because I have a daughter, we all have daughters and mothers and sisters. We don't want to see them in that way, and that's how the world is, allowing them to happen. So in this report also we have we collected data on daily basis. What is the daily life of the Rohingya people? What is their security? What is the food? What is the air they are breathing? Right? What is the environment they are living in? This is not one or two people. This is more than 1 million people, and their future is totally destroyed, and their generation has been destroyed. If you look at it properly, the education, the healthcare, a lot of things are destroyed. So this is but I want to go to now to the lecture slide, and I want to explain. These are the items we have conducted the research: food, medical needs, safety and security in the camps, violence in the camps, gang activities, women and girls issues, arranged marriage and trafficking and kidnappings, arson attacks, quality of life and hope for the future. So this is the very much details written in the report and shared with all the the witness, their comments and their codes. Next slide, please. This is we start with the food aid. The aid about the report. About the report is, as I said earlier, we have already covered that page. Can you jump to number 5, lecture slide 5, please? Yeah, this is the food aid. The question we ask: do you receive enough food rations? So here is the number here. Only 7.7% says yes, and nearly 92%, more than 92% says that they never had enough foods. There are some pictures in the report as well. They're rotten foods and they are not suitable for them to eat. They're receiving from the aid, and they never had enough food. And this is very dangerous elements in genocidal impact. When there is no enough food and their immunization is getting very weak. And think about it: if one happened COVID-19 in the situation, the whole entire refugee population could wipe out. Their current situation, I mean, the immunization on their level is very weak. The food they are taking, the healthcare they are receiving is very inappropriate, and this could kill them more than the military killed them in Burma. And this could be the most heinous, dangerous impact on the Rohingya population in refugee camps. And also they receive, of course, something is better than nothing, but they receive some food properly, regularly, but difficult to spend the whole entire year. Imagine about ourselves if we are taking the same thing every day for years. Psychologically it devastated people, and also they also want to look at these people's background. They are rich people. They are farmers. They have lands and properties and animals, and they own their farms, and they want to work for their livelihood. They don't want to live and relying on other people. They want to do job. They want to live life like everyone else. But unfortunately, they are living in a camp or surrounded by barbed wires. So that's not the proper way of life they are living. I will now go to medical needs. Another slide, please. These medical needs, we have, we have questions that do you receive enough medical supplies? 50% of says yes, 50% says no. Have you been, another question is, have you been sick or injured in the past years? And there are 63% says yes, and others says no. But this is the reason why, can you go to another slide, please? The healthcare is, what happened is, you see, among the overseas Rohingya population, there are doctors and there are some good and very well educated Rohingya medical doctors in around the world. They also have doing a lot of good job, but they never receive any help. They never get any help from international community. I know so many Rohingya doctors, they are doing a lot of amazing job in the camps, and even they are living from far, they do a lot of work, but they never get any help from international community. This is very bad. We need to help them. And also Rohingya camps, in the Rakhine state, the healthcare was systematically, intentionally deprived them, because for them to get sick and never can get cured. So that is the way of killing them. But in the camp is different situation. We can definitely, international community definitely fulfill this gap, but we are not filling that, because I don't know why international community has so much reluctant to do more work. And I know that there are so many work has been done on the ground, but it is not enough. Another slide, please. Safety and security. We asked the people, our interviewees, the description of current safety and situation in the camp. 27.3% says only positive, but the rest, it's more than 72% says their life is very in danger. They have no security, no safety. Especially children, girls are mostly vulnerable. And this is very important for Bangladesh government to consider, to protect these people. And also it is also international community need to help Bangladesh government to assist and to help these people, to vulnerable people, to protect them. And several refugees stated that while they felt protected by the security forces in the camp, but also sometimes the security forces take sometimes they are very heavy-handed sometimes. So this also give them, increase their trauma. And refugees who are still and always been in the camp, frequently they are harassed and forced to pay the bribes to some authorities, and because of some corruption, and we know that the government of Bangladesh has been doing a lot of changes and doing a lot of good work. We recognize their goodwill, but the situation on the ground is still need to do a lot. And I think that we cannot blame the Bangladeshi government, because we have to help international community, need to help Bangladeshi government to cope with these sudden changes and a lot of pressure on them. And this is a camp situation which we protest, which we urge Bangladesh government. This is not the way these people need to be living. These are the genocide survivors. They are not supposed to live behind the barbed wires. This is very heartbreaking to see, but also this is very illegal to put refugees behind the. Maybe if there may be some security reason or security things, but it is not appropriate to put these refugees in behind the barbed wire. And next slide, please. Violence in the camp. You will see, yes, this is 100%. And I understand that in methodologically and technically, when you do some research, you never get 100%. That's something wrong. But this is the case. We definitely get 100% right here. This is 100% people telling us, is violence a problem in your camp? Yes. There are many people has been killed. All we know how the killing and the kidnapping is going on. So no one feels safe in the camp. And this is very dangerous impact for the people who are living in the camp. And 100% is something telling you very different now. That's really shocking. And the violence mentioned is gender-based violence, and some connected with the gang issues, some militant gangs, and drug is very common in the drug inflows is very common in the camp. So we are this is, of course, again, Bangladesh government, also international government need to take some responsibility to protect these people, to help the Bangladesh government. And disappearance is one of the major problem and concern for many people. And we have spoken with some families, about the disappearance. And in the report, you will see some codes from the victims and their relatives. They're saying how, what is the situation they face and what happened with the kidnapping. In many cases, they ask for ransoms. And this ransom, think about the people who are living in the camp. They can't even afford their meals properly. How could they afford their ransom? And of course, they have to reach out their families in abroad, and many people, they have to beg for this money, and they have gone through the hell, to save their loved one, to save their children. And the militant groups are also, creating a lot of pressure. They're forcing them to join the military, to join this militant groups, and sometimes they are forcing the families to marry to their daughters to their militants. So these are a lots of they cannot say anything. If they complain to anyone, their life will end. And the criminal activities were also another major concerns. 81% of interviewees saying it was a problem, big problem. The criminal activities such as drug, killings, murdering, disappearance, human trafficking, sex slaves, this kind of things are a lot happening in. And this never, one of the shocking things, never been challenged or never been considered to handle this problem. What we are saying is all the time, of course, we have the genocide has conducted by the military of Burma and the military government on Burma at that time. And now the situation is already, the people's life is already destroyed, already affected. How are we going to minimize this damage? And this never been addressed, the situation. Of course, the international community and aid organizations and humanitarian aids are flowing in strongly, I know that, but it is not enough that we paying them, we sending them, but we need to consider how the situation is impacted to them individually and family life, and this is going to impact on their generation. It's not going to go away very soon. Next slide, please. This is the gang and the militant violence in the camp. The question we ask is, in gang activity, a problem in your camp? There are people who very afraid to say anything. They immediately stop our stuff, we cannot answer you this thing, please don't ask that. We can't put ourselves into risk. So even though we arrange a place they can easily talk and then they can say something, but they are very afraid of to tell people. And yes, people 61% say that yes, that's a big problem in the camp. And no, people who saying no is either they are afraid to say yes, or either they don't understand, they can still absent, or they can say that no, we don't want to answer that. So these are the no category is a little bit tricky here. We also unable to differentiate properly, because maybe this is some weakness we have. We are unable to make sure that why they say no, because when we repeatedly ask them, because there are people who are saying, oh, whether this is there any impact for them, they keep saying no. So please go to another slide, please. Organized crime is one of the very major problem in the camp, and the violence in the camp involve both criminal gangs and militant gangs. This is militant gangs means who fighting against the military, Burmese military, but at the same time they kill more Rohingya than they kill the military. So gang and the militant groups have significant control over the various part of the camp. So they are like a second authority in the camp. So you cannot say or do anything against them. And after research of this report, every one of you know that a community leader, who was a very outspoken Mohibullah, was assassinated in the camp in September. And the following month, 7 refugees were gunned down outside of the madrasa. So the killing is not stopped, it's continue, despite the whole international community crying out what's going on in the camp. Now I go to another slide, women and girls issues. This issue is particularly my colleague, my friend, Brother Ismail will go to details. I would like to touch some data we collected. Issues, particularly women and girls, are frequently overlooked, and they I call them voiceless, victims, or also oppressed. Lack of women's the supplies the women need every day, every month. So these are one of their human rights has been undermined, and this is very shame for the culturally. But there are some cultural barrier among the women. They never speak out something. They never want to share what they feel. Among women, they of course they share some information. So it's need to international community need to consider there must be some kind of arrangement or help for the women in the camp, and for them to feel safe. One of the daily problem is in the night time they feel very unsafe to go to the toilet, because it's outside and they could be attacked, and there isn't any light or there isn't any security for them. So in the camp it's happened so many times as well. So that is why women are afraid of going outside home for the toilet. And that is, maybe it seems a small thing, but it happened the whole camp, and all this 1 million population is facing every day by night for this problem. Another slide, please. And also, gender-based violence was frequent, of concern, because both men and women in the camp, they are sometimes men are also victim of all the situations, and they release their anger with their women, which is very wrong, which is crime. But that's a situation, that's a reality. What we do? It is not we are here to blame and to condemn them. We need to help them. That's what they need help. And street harassment also one of the very frequent thing happen in the camp. And some of the you will see the witness, some say quotes from the witness. They saying that how they've been robbed in the street and by the people. And the dowry issues, one of the cultural problem. I understand that when they are marrying to their daughters, so they have to, actually it is not religiously, it is even sometimes prohibited, but culturally they are creating this, that to pay something for their daughters, which is impossible for someone who are struggling to survive every day and daily basis. So we have also some quotes here in the I will encourage you to read in the report. Please go to lecture slide 21, please. Arranged marriage and trafficking is one of the major problem. I think Brother Haji Ismail will explain you more details. Human trafficking of the Rohingya from Bangladesh into Burma or to other Southeast Asian country is very common. It is one of the problem, since the international community start realizing is about after 2012, but this happening long ago. And most of men live under the assumption that they can walk in Malaysia, Indonesia, some Thailand, but most of them, they ended up either in the jails or in Burma, or they ended up in slavery. But those who arrived to Malaysia, in Indonesia, because these countries have been, being a fellow Muslim brothers, and also on the humanitarian ground, these countries are helping them, allowing them to live and to walk in the country, but still they don't have any legal status. So at the same thing, at least what they, from the perspective of the human right perspective, they deserve all the rights equally as other people. But also there are the authorities who they are worried about if the situation cannot control, that will be floodgate and open the floodgate and could be detrimental to their security. So we understand both sides, but the problem is now the root cause is Burma, the genocidal policy, anti-Muslim genocidal policy that has been practicing in Burma since 1962. The genocide didn't happen in just for 1 or 2 days. It takes decades to happen. So all of the family members, those who are women who are trafficked, said that they left for the marriage. And most of the time when we check the numbers, are also the majority of the people who detained or arrested or arrived somewhere, majority of the always been women. And we asked the question that are kidnapping is a problem in your camp? So there are more than about 90% of people saying that, yeah, they are facing kidnapping. So we need to investigate where these people ended up. One of the assumption is probably if a man, they are going to end up in slavery, some country and some islands. But what about the woman? So we need to find out, we need to investigate. But this cannot done by a small human rights organization like us. The governments, international government, need to come together and stop this human trafficking. Rohingya peoples have become a raw material for the human traffickers. For them, this is a very good population to exploit. And that's really heartbreaking, and we are losing and we are failing. We are failing in morality and we are failing on our principle as well. And please, another slide. And there also, we asked people, are you afraid of being kidnapped? So each and individual people in the camps, they are feeling unsafe of being kidnapped. It is not meaning for the children. It is for the women, it is for the young adult as well. And we asked the people who has experience about these kidnappings and the traffickings. So these are the two things we discovered from them. And during the trip, their dehydration, starvation, illness become serious problem during the voyage. Some of them cannot make it, and they throw the body into the water, and the family thought that they must be walking somewhere else. They never know. And sometimes the traffickers, they stop the boat at the middle of the sea and they contact the family to give more money for ransom. Otherwise they will be thrown into the water. So that kind of blackmailing also going on by the traffickers. And poor family, they have to find out the money begging everywhere. So they are vulnerable again and again. And traffickers remain, when this trafficker remain at the sea, they are well connected. You cannot talk about them, you cannot mention their name. If you do so, your loved one will never arrive at the shore. So these are the situation and condition the people in the camp are living. And the last, in the arson attack, please go to the lecture slide 26. This arson attack, another slide, please. Yeah. What is the most common type of crimes in the area? So we asked the people, our interviewees, what is the most crimes you've seen in your areas? Arson attack is the most. 46.7% people says that they are facing arson attack more than any other crimes. Of course, there is also fight, there is also drug trafficking, there is also domestic violence, there's a trafficking, human trafficking, and kidnapping. These are also happening. But among them, the arson attack, if one time it happened, it killed a lot of people and destroyed a lot of houses. So thousands of people has been, lost their properties and homes, and their children are also vulnerable in the fire as well. And arson attack become a serious concern of the current situation because of the when we interviewed the people, when fire broke out, it spread very fast and very quick that they don't even understand what to do. And when they realize this fire is broke out and their life already gone, the fire consumed them. In major fire happened in 22nd March in last year, and where 15 people were killed and thousands lost their homes. And fire continue to occur sporadically, and recently, as recent as in January 2022, recently happened as well. Refugees, when we asked them what is the cause of the arson attack, whether is it arson attack or whether it is accidental fire broke out. So we discovered we are unable to investigate as but we found the witnessing from the population in the camp saying that this is the arson attack, and this is one of the local people who are getting sick of the Rohingya people, and they said that you are taking our job, you are living here, you are polluting our place, you are destroying our country, and they want them to go away. And that is the arson attack is one of the quick and easiest way for them to get rid of this. And some people also saying that this will create the people to encourage or maybe forced them to move to Basancha Island. So we are not sure what is the real reason behind the arson attack. That's very important to understand. Refugees frequently blame, the cause of the culprit behind the is still unknown. And here's some thing. And the quality of life, the last and not least, I want to share the quality of life. We asked the people, the refugee, description of their current overall situation. So 90%, 91% says is very negative about the way they are living. And you can expect that because these are the people who live very different life in Burma when they were in Burma. Please move to another slide. Yeah. Go to the slide 30. This is the quality of life, this one. And this is, please go to the lecture slide 32, please. Sorry, 31. Yeah. That's people who we asked people who what do they expect to do? What is their hope? They really want to go back to Burma immediately when they want to return to Burma. And among the greatest concern is the lack of work, lack of education, and lack of security. And hoping for them to go back to Burma soon. And the majority of the refugees said they will consider to settle to the third country if it will be giving them opportunity for. Please lecture slide 32. And this is the message from the Rohingya camp. People from the Rohingya in the camp we interviewed and we talked to them. They said that we belong to Burma. We want to go back to our home, and our children need education. The parents are saying that, and some saying that we need protection, especially women. And we are also human beings. The Rohingyas are saying that, and we also have dreams. We have dreams like you, he said. Thank you very much for patiently listening my talk, and please feel free to have if you have any question. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Chowin. And so now we can see, let's go back to the root word, refugee. It's basically people who are fleeing conflict and oppression, seeking refuge, which is safety and shelter from the abuses that they have fled. And unfortunately, this report, which is actually an important qualitative research, if you read if you go through the report, you will read many quotes, direct quotes from the refugees in the camp. And it's almost like understanding a little bit about having a conversation with people who are stuck in the camp. It's also important to note that 68% of those interviewed were women. And in situations like this, as Chowin pointed out, women are disproportionately affected. So we can see already this overview that what the refugees in the world's largest refugee camp in Bangladesh, the Rohingya refugees, are being subjected to is actually prolonging the impacts and trauma, the health, physical, mental, and emotional impacts of genocidal violence committed by what we now call the illegal junta of Burma. So one of the important points is in page 36, we actually have the section on trafficking, and we're very lucky to have with us this morning Haji Ismail, Managing Director of the Rohingya Peace Network, and who actually has a very close exposure and understanding of the human trafficking of refugees, Rohingya refugees from the camps. Haji Ismail, understanding that there are security issues around this, what can you share with us about the situation?
Thank you so much for inviting me in this valuable room and the press conference today. And thank you so much to Burma Human Rights Network. I sit in here and listening everything from the report, all are truth. But I have some information what I saw in my own eyes, what I heard with my own ear. I am a witness. Last 2 years ago, I went to Bangladesh refugee camp, and I was born in Rakhine also, in Butidong township. I have many sources and information because I am a Rohingya. I was born there. In my hometown is the Butidong, and now some of my family remaining in Rakhine, and some of my relative and the family fled to the Bangladesh. And we are human, we are victim of genocide. We are genocide survivor. Please do not look us as a normal refugee. We are no normal refugee. We are fled for genocide problem. The Burmese army killing us from 1992, not from 2017. And also they have a master plan program for to delete from this land, this Rakhine, all Rohingya people, direct or indirect way. They have a big plan program also for push from this area to another area, delete from this area. So they did us, done us, doing us many plan program. They deny our education. Me also not educated person. I am also a persecuted. I mean the persecuted education, genocide education. So my English is not as strong, poor. So I need to help from Mr. Ucho Wing sometime. If I need to help, please help me. For what is I not understand, not say you all what happened in Rakhine and the refugee camp. I have many source and information. My English is not as strong, so I cannot say everything. Please help me, Mr. Ucho Wing.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, please.
Alumbai Mingalaba.
Hi, everyone.
Alumbai Minglaba. Ago Myanmar ma Pine de Neu Tonley Kanzania de Neu Tonlema power netted to Yoga Mia Alum which on Diniagani, Liza Ibar.
I salute from here everyone who involved in the uprising and currently who are struggling and involved in uprising from here.
Mema P2 Pieta Alung Netagua Chonuru Rohingya Gale Dendu Yitu Dendu Tatade Yetenebar.
We stand with, or we all Rohingya brothers and sisters stand with the people in Burma.
Kamiaro Tenera Chonurua Chonole Chono Tedolobe Kanzamide.
The way they are killing you, or also same as we feel that they are killing us.
Dodo Kamiaro Tenera Agu Teni Lobachide.
But they are killing you is just 1 year.
They are killing
us since 60 years.
ကျွန်တော်တို့အားလုံးကျွန်တော်တို့ရိုဟင်ဂျာလူမျိုးအားလုံးကိုလူမျိုးတုံးတက်နေတဲ့ program တစ်ခုနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုလုပ်နေတာပါ
This is very systematic program they have implemented to get rid of the Rohingya people from Burma.
လွန်ခဲ့တဲ့10နှစ်တုန်းက2010နဲ့နေ့မှာကျွန်တော်တို့လူတွေကိုတက်ပြီးတော့နောက်ပြီးတော့အိမ်တွေကိုမီးရှို့ပြီးတော့အခုထိအဲ့ဒီလူတွေကပြေထွေးမှာခိုးနိုင်ငံမှာဒီမှာနေပြီးတော့ခိုးရဲ့နိုင်ငံမှာမျိုးပေါ်မှာနေပြီးတော့ပြေထွေးမှာကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုဒုက္ခတွေအပြည့်နဲ့ထားတဲ့အခုအချိန်တပြည့်တယ်
Since 2012, people Rohingya people have faced arson attack, murdered, killing, and then they lost all their homes and properties. They are still living as an IDP since 2012, still in Rakhine State.
အဲ့ဒီတုန်းကတချို့မြန်မာပြည်သူပြည်သားတွေကကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုနားလည်မှုလုပ်ခဲ့တယ်
That time, unfortunately, some of our brothers and sisters from Burma misunderstood us.
ဒါပေမဲ့အခုသူတို့ကိုယ်တိုင်ခံစားနေရတဲ့ပုံမှာသူတို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုပို့ပြီးတော့နားလည်လာပြီ
But now they understand us, because they also in the same suffering, same as like us now.
အဲ့တော့အားလုံးကိုကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်အခုတို့မြင်လေးနဲ့နားလည်လာတဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုနားလည်ပေးတဲ့အတွက်အများကြီးအားလုံးကိုကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်
I appreciate that for their understanding to us.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟာလူသားတွေပါ
We are human beings.
ခမည်းတော်နဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့နဲ့အတူတူပဲခမည်းတော်လည်းတမင်းစားတဲ့ရေတောက်တဲ့အိတ်တဲ့အကုန်လုံးအတူတူပဲ
We all same. We also have same as like you.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုလူသားအနေနဲ့ကြည့်ကြပါ
Look at us as a human being.
နောက်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဟာဒီလိုလူမျိုးတုံးတက်ပြက်ခံနေရတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုစာနာပေးပါ
We urge you to have sympathy to us that we are facing genocide.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုဒီလိုလူမျိုးတုံးသွားအောင်တက်ပြက်နေတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုရက်တင်ပြအောင်ခင်ဗျားတို့လည်းပူးပေါင်းပြီးတော့ဒီကဘာသားများကိုကျွန်တော် request လုပ်ရှင်တယ်ပေါ့အားလုံးကပူးပေါင်းပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ရဲ့ genocide plan program ကိုရက်တင်သွားအောင်လုပ်ပေးပါ
I would like to urge international community to help us, to protect us, and to stop this, to help us to stop the genocidal operation that's still going on in Rakhine State and in
ကျွန်တော်ကလူသား genocide လူမျိုးတုံးတိုးပြုံးတိတော့အောင်လုပ်နေတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုကန်စားနေရတဲ့လူတွေပါ
we are a victim of genocide.
အဲ့တော့အခုကျွန်တော်တို့လူတင်းပေါင်းများစွာကိုဘင်္ဂလားဒေ့ရှ်နိုင်ငံဘက်ကိုသူတို့ကတွန်းပို့လိုက်ပြီ
Now, it's nearly a million people who are our people in Bangladesh camp. They are successful to kick them out from Burma.
အဲ့တော့အဲ့ဒီလူတွေကအခုအဲ့ဒီဒုက္ခသည်စခန်းထဲမှာနေရတာတော်ကက်တဲ့ဘဝနဲ့နေရတယ်
Their life is very miserable in the camp.
ကျွန်တော်ကိုယ်တိုင်ကျွန်တော်ရဲ့မျက်စိနဲ့ကျွန်တော်မြင်ခဲ့တယ်
I'm an eyewitness and I've been there myself.
ဆင်းရဲတဲ့လူတွေချမ်းသာတဲ့လူတွေအားလုံးတန်းတူရတူမဲ့အချင်းကန်လဲတဲလေးမှနေလို့ပဲကက်နဲ့နေရတာစားလို့မရဘူးအိပ်လို့မရဘူးနောက်ပြီးတော့ဆေးဝါးအပြည့်ဝမရတဲ့နေရာမှာနေနေတဲ့အချင်းဖြစ်တယ်
They're all the people from those who fled from Burma. They're living in a very small, tiny rooms, and their livelihood, their food, their healthcare is very poor. It's not inappropriate, and they are living in a very the pressure is very strong on them.
လူသားတွေအားလုံးကခေါင်းမွန်ဖြူရွှင်နဲ့နေရှင်တယ်
As a human being, everyone wants to live in a good life, peaceful life.
အဲ့တော့ဒီလိုကက်နေတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့လူတွေကဒီလိုကက်တဲ့ဘဝနဲ့နေတဲ့အချိန်မှာလူကုန်ကူးတဲ့လူတွေကသူတို့ကိုတွားပြီးတော့ဆွေတယ်
While we are suffering all this kind of trauma and difficulties, human traffickers attract us, our people.
ကိုစားဖို့မရှိတဲ့အချိန်မှာအကက်ပုံစုံကိုကန်စားနေတဲ့အချိန်မှာဒီလိုလူကုန်ကူးတဲ့လူတွေကတွားပြီးတော့ဆွေတဲ့အချိန်မှာသူတို့လည်းလူကုန်ကူးတဲ့လူရဲ့စကားကိုနားထောင်ပေးတယ်
So they all fall into the trap of the human traffickers because they are desperate to get away of this kind of trouble every day they are facing. So when the human traffickers give them hope, that they fall into the trap.
အဲ့ဒီလူကုန်ကူးနေတဲ့လူတွေနဲ့မြန်မာစစ်တပ်နဲ့အဆက်အသွယ်ရှိတယ်
And these human traffickers, if I'm not wrong, they have connection with the military of Burma.
အဲ့ဒီစစ်တပ်ကကျွန်တော်တို့လူတွေကိုဟိုမြန်မာနိုင်ငံနဲ့ဝေးတဲ့နေရာကိုတွားစေရှင်တယ်
The aim of the military is only is that they want to get rid of all the Muslims from Burma So that is what the good opportunity for them. Without operating any attack, these human traffickers are helping the policy, genocidal policy, to for the Muslim to get away from move away from Burma.
ကိုဒီမှာအဲ့ဒီလူကုန်ကူးသမားတွေကဒီ refugee camp တွေမှာတွားပြီးတော့လူတွေကိုခေါ်လာတယ်နယ်စပ်တိခေါ်လာတယ်မြန်မာနိုင်ငံတို့ကိုလာသွင်းတယ်ခေါ်လာတယ်
These human traffickers, they even reach to the refugee camps from Burma, and they also go to very lengthy distance to reach out the Rohingya people, and then they arrange the people to traffic to different countries, different sites.
သူတို့ဘင်္ဂလားဒေ့ရှ်နိုင်ငံနဲ့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံကိုခိုးလာတဲ့အချိန်မှာစစ်တပ်ရှိတယ်ရေးရှိတယ်နေကြဆောင်တွေရှိတယ်သူတို့ကိုမပန်းကြဘူး
One of the easily think you can think easily is because when they come to Bangladesh from Burma, these human traffickers, there was a military, there is a police, there is a border police, border guard. Nobody arrests them. How come they easily traveling from Burma to Bangladesh camp?
မြန်မာနိုင်ငံနဲ့ဘင်္ဂလားဒေ့ရှ်နိုင်ငံနယ်စပ်မှာမျိုးတစ်မျိုးရှိတယ်မောင်တော့ကနေဘူးသီးတောင်ကတော့ရေသေးတောင်ဆိုတဲ့မျိုးမှာရွာတစ်ရွာရှိတယ်အဲ့ဒီရွာရဲ့နာမည်ကဆာမီလာဖြစ်တယ်
There is a from border town name is Mongdo. Mongdo is located between Bangladesh and Burma border. And if you go inside Burma from Mongdo, you reach Budidong. From Budidong to further, if you go inside Burma, you reach Radedong. In Radedong, there is a name of the village.
အဲ့ဒီရွာရဲ့နာမည်ကဆာမီလာ
Samila. The name of the village is Samila.
အဲ့ဒီဆာမီလာဆိုတဲ့အဲ့ဒီဆာမီလာလို့ခေါ်တဲ့ရွာမှာဂိုဒေါင်ကြီးစေလုံးလောက်ဆောက်ထားတယ်
In this Samila village, there are huge warehouse, about 10 warehouse.
ဘင်္ဂလားဒေ့ရှ် refugee စခန်းကနေခေါ်လာတဲ့လူတွေကိုအဲ့ဒီဂိုဒေါင်တွေမှာထားတယ်
Those who they are bringing people from the Bangladesh camp for trafficking, they keep these people into these warehouse.
သူတို့ကိုနေကြဆောင်တဲ့ပွဲနဲ့မြန်မာစစ်တပ်မြန်မာအာဏာပိုင်တွေကသူတို့ကိုအစင်းရောင်မီးပြထားတယ်ဘယ်တော့မှမပန်းကြဘူး
They have green light from all the security forces because they all well organized, and they have been supported. The aim is these people need to go away from this place. The lesser these people remain around Burma is better for them, for the military. That is the strategy. That's why they are helping these human traffickers. They never arrest them, they never detain them, they all allowing them to pass freely from this border.
အဲ့ဒီဂိုဒေါင်ကနေဒီလူတွေကိုတပြေးပြေးဆက်လက်တွေနဲ့ခေါ်လာတယ်
And these people are trafficked again by boat to different locations.
ဟိုစကိုင်းတိုင်းဖက်မှာနောက်ပြီးတော့ထုံကုတ်ဖက်မှာနောက်ပြီးတော့ဟိုဖက်မှာအမ်းဖက်မှာထောတောင်တွေကိုပြက်ပြီးတော့ဒီမှာထိုင်းနိုင်ငံဖက်ကိုခေါ်လာတယ်
And they've gone through from this place. They have 3 different locations. He named earlier in northern Burma, Zagain divisions, and An and Tongok. Yeah, and all these locations are gateway to the jungle path, jungle route. The route is from past the jungle.
အဲ့ဒီတောင်ထဲမှာလမ်းမရှိရဘူး
And that is very dark jungle, and you can't see any route because they know the way where they can cross.
အဲ့ဒီတောင်ထဲမှာဒီရိုဟင်ဂျာတွေကိုတလနာလာတိထားတယ်
And they the traffickers keep these people, Rohingya, in this jungle about 1 or 2 months.
သူတို့ခေါ်လာတဲ့ရိုဟင်ဂျာထဲမှာအမျိုးသမီးတွေပါလာတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုသူတို့ကမဒင်းချင်းတယ်
Among these these traffickers, among them there were women, Rohingya women. They regularly, every time they abuse them, they rape them.
အမျိုးသားတွေကိုတက်ပြီးတော့ရိုက်ပြီးတော့ပတ်စံတွေထောင်းတယ်
And they torture the men, and they extorted money from them.
သူတို့ကိုဒုက္ခသည်စခန်းကနေခေါ်လာတဲ့အချိန်မှာဖက်ဆန်ဖေးစီရမလို့ဟိုမလေးရှားနိုင်ငံတီရောက်သွားမှတပြေးပြေးပေးလို့ရတယ်လို့ပြောတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီ land တလျှောက်လုံးမှာသူတို့ကိုရိုက်ခဲ့ပြီးတော့သူတို့ကိုဖက်ဆန်တစင်းတောင်းနေရတယ်
When these traffickers, when they went to refugee camps to get their customers, they tell them you don't need to pay any money now. Once you reach to the Malaysia, when you start working, you can pay money to us that time.
ကျွန်တော်ဒီစကားတွေကိုပြောနေတာတခြားလူတွေစီကနေကြားပြီးတော့ပြောနေတာမဟုတ်ပါ
I am not saying this because I hear say from other people.
ကျွန်တော်ကိုယ်တိုင်သူတို့နဲ့စကားပြောပြီးမှမေးပြီးမှ interview လုပ်ပြီးမှပြောနေတာဖြစ်တယ်
This is I get direct witness, first-hand witnessing from the people who've been trafficked, who gone through all this situation. Then I got this information from them.
အမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုဝင်ဆောင်ထားတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေအများကြီးကျွန်တော်တွေ့တယ်
I saw many pregnant women.
အဲ့တော့ဒီလူတွေကိုဒီလိုနှစ်လသုံးလတောတောင်ထဲမှာထားပြီးတော့တပြေးပြေးထိုင်းနိုင်ငံဒီဘို့တောင်နေစက်မှာယူလာပြီးတော့ဒီတာနဲ့ထိုင်းနိုင်ငံနဲ့တစီမလေးရှားနိုင်ငံကိုပို့တယ်
And bring these people from when they keep them in the jungle, then they take them to crossing some cities and some towns, and then it reached to Thailand, and then from Thailand they reached to Malaysia.
တချို့လူတွေကိုအင်ဒိုနီးရှားနိုင်ငံတိပို့တယ်
Some they sent to Indonesia.
အဲ့တော့လာခေါ်လာတဲ့လူတွေကအကုန်လုံးရောက်သူတို့လိုချင်တဲ့နေရာကိုမရောက်နိုင်ဘူး90ရကန်နင်းလောက်ပဲသူတို့ရောက်တယ်ကျန်တဲ့လူတွေကလမ်းကြီးမှာအဖင့်ခံရတယ်
Only 50% of the people who they traffic can reach to the destination. About other 50% maybe killed, maybe died, maybe lost away, or maybe arrested. Most of them are arrested in Burma.
အဲ့တော့ဒီလူကုန်ကူးတဲ့လူတွေကသူတို့ရဲ့ network ကသူ့ရဲ့ initial နိုင်ငံတွေကိုဝင်ဖို့ပြအောင်လုပ်နေတာဖြစ်တယ်
So these human traffickers are creating a lot of problem for the neighboring country.
ဒါတွေအားလုံးကမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ရဲ့အစီအစဉ်ဖြစ်တယ်
This is a very systematic program that has been laid out and established and operating by the help of the military. Without the help of the military, they can never do this.
ပြဿနာလုံးနေတာကမြန်မာစစ်တပ်
The real culprit and the real root cause is the Burmese military.
သို့တော့ဒီမှာခံစားနေရတဲ့လူတွေကအိန္ဒိယရှိနိုင်ငံတွေဖြစ်တယ်
But the people who are suffering is the Rohingya in the neighboring countries.
အဲ့တော့ခင်ဗျားတို့စဉ်းစားကြည့်ပါဒီပြဿနာကိုဘယ်လိုပြင်ရှင်းမယ်ဆိုတာ
So we need to think about how we are going to solve this problem.
အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်ပြောချင်တာကျွန်တော်တို့ရိုဟင်ဂျာကျွန်တော်တို့လူမျိုးတွေရိုဟင်ဂျာလူမျိုးတွေကျွန်တော်တို့ကတကယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကဒီလိုလူမျိုးတုံးတက်ခံနေရတဲ့survivor တွေဖြစ်တယ်
So in reality, we Rohingyas are genocide survivors. We are going through all kind of oppressions and difficulties.
အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်လူခုန်ခိုးနေတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုလည်းကျွန်တော်ခံနေရတယ်
We are also victim of human trafficking.
နောက်ပြီးတော့ဟိုမှာမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ကနေကျွန်တော်ကိုတက်နေတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုလည်းကျွန်တော်ခံနေရတယ်
We also suffering killings of the Burmese military.
အဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီနေရာမှာလုံးဝလုံခြုံမှုမရှိဘူး
So we have no protection, no safe for us.
ကျွန်တော်တို့လူသားတွေဖြစ်တယ်
We are also human being.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ဘာမှဒီကဘာကြီးမှာမရှိဘူးလားဆိုပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်မေးရှင်တယ်
Sometimes we think that is there nothing for us in this world for us for being a Rohingya?
အဲ့တော့ဒီမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ကိုကျွန်တော်ဘယ်လိုခံရမလဲဆိုတာစဉ်းစားတင်တယ်
Now we need to think about how we are going to solve this problem and how we are going to undone what the military is doing.
ဟိုဘင်္ဂလားဒေ့ရှ် refugee ကမ်းမှာအခုကျန်တဲ့လူတွေက15သိန်းလောက်ရှိတယ်
In estimation, there are 1.5 million still remain in Bangladesh camp.
ဒီလူတွေကဒီလိုလဲနေပဲလာမှာပဲ
It is a huge. These people will definitely pass this path.
အဲ့တော့ဒီပြဿနာကြီးကိုဘယ်လိုကတာဝန်ယူမလဲ
Who is going to take responsibility for this problem?
အဲ့တော့ဒီ initial နိုင်ငံတွေကိုသူကဒီလိုဒီမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ကပြဿနာတွေဒီလိုအစပွပြီးတော့လုံနေတာဒါဘယ်လိုလုပ်ပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်ရက်တန်းတင်လာဆိုပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်စဉ်းစားစေချင်တယ်
So I would like to urge international community to think about how we are going to find the solution while the military is creating intentionally, throwing these people into their neighboring countries by many ways and means.
နောက်တစ်ခုကျွန်တော်အတနာကန်ရှင်တာဒီ ကျွန်တော်လူမျိုးတွေဒီမြန်မာနိုင်ငံကနေထွက်လာတဲ့လူတွေအကုန်လုံးကလူကုန်းလူဟိုစားလူမျိုးတို့တက်ပြည့်နေတဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုမခံနိုင်လို့ထွက်ပြေးလာရတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုvictim of genocide အနေနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုကြည့်ပြပါ
I would like to urge the neighboring countries and international community, those who arrived at your border and your shores, please treat us as genocide survivors, not as criminals.
ကျွန်တော်ဘာအမှုကြီးကြီးမှမလုပ်ခဲ့ဘူး
We never committed any crimes. All our crime is being a
ကျွန်
Rohingya.
တော်ကိုလုံနေတဲ့လူကမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ဖြစ်တယ်
The real culprit is the Burmese military, not us.
နောက်ဆုံးကျွန်တော်အနေနဲ့အတနာခင်ချင်းတဲ့နောက်တစ်ခုကကျွန်တော်တို့ဟာမြန်မာပြည်မှာမွေးတယ်မြန်မာပြည်ကိုရှစ်တယ်မြန်မာပြည်သူပြည်သားတွေအခုမြန်မာစစ်တပ်ကိုထောက်လှမ်းနေတဲ့အချိန်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ရိုဟင်ဂျာတွေကလည်းပဲမြန်မာပြည်သူပြည်သားအားလုံးနဲ့တသားတည်းရှိပါတယ်လို့ဒီနေရာကနေကျွန်တော်message လေးပေးပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်အသုံးသပ်ပါတယ်
In my conclusion, I would like to send a message to people in Burma that we are also fighting with you against that military, that culprit, and we stand by you. We always be with you. Thank you.
အရေးတဘုံအောင်ရမည်
Our revolution must prevail.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
Thank you, Haji Ismail, for your very courageous exposure, explaining to us how the system of trafficking, people being trafficked even from Bangladesh right through different parts of Burma towards Thailand and Malaysia, quite clearly shows that the human traffickers either are tolerated or even supported or have the collusion of the illegal military junta. And thank you for your impassioned plea that Rohingya should be treated as genocide survivors and not as criminals. And that brings us to back to the report. We also have dreams. There are, towards the back of the report, you will see, yes, Phil's going to speak. Okay, he's up next. We're running out of time. So there are a set of recommendations to the government of Bangladesh, the international community, and the national unity government. But I would also strongly encourage you to download this report, not just for the pie charts and the overview of the situation, but also to read the direct quotes of the people interviewed in the camps so that you actually get a sense of, get direct exposure, you hear their voices directly. I'm supposed to be wearing two hats today. I'm supposed to be speaking as well as moderating. And I think the report speaks for itself. It's quite clear that the report is something that needs to be heeded. This actually looks at the life of people in the world's largest Rohingya camp, the genocide survivors after the news cycle is over. You know, every few months we hear what's going on with the Rohingya, and of course in the past year we've been exposed regularly to updates. We've been receiving news updates from what's going on in Burma, including the atrocity crimes committed by the illegal junta, almost as if we are seeing a replay of the genocidal violence that was targeting Rohingya people back in 2017. The thing is, the violence against Rohingya did not stop after 2017. It is ongoing, and it's an ongoing nightmare of violence in which the military junta is also repeating its crimes against people in the rest of the country. And we've also seen that the situation in the west of the country, in Sagaing region and Chin State, has been extremely intense. We've also seen that the situation in Kaya or Karenni State, where the junta actually launched airstrikes on the state capital, where more than 60% of the population of Kaya State has been displaced in the past few months because of military violence, and that we're seeing that if you look at the pattern of violence, what is causing me concern is that the pattern of violence is reminiscent of the genocidal violence against the Rohingya, but also the violence targeting ethnic communities in the border areas has been disproportionate to the rest of the country. What that's telling us is that we are facing a threat of millions of people from Burma not just being displaced in their own country, but needing to seek refuge in neighboring countries. So if we look at this report, I think the most urgent sense for me is that I do not want to read a report like this. We also have dreams of all the other refugees from all the other ethnic areas in the country. We really need to understand that the needs described, the experiences described in this report is giving us a sense of anticipation or sense of foreboding about what might happen to other ethnic people from the country if the violence in Burma continues, if the international community does not act. And I can tell you the Asia-Pacific region, but particularly ASEAN, India, China, and Bangladesh cannot afford to see a multiplication of the Rohingya crisis happening to ethnic people all around the country. And this is a good opportunity for me to call in Phil Robertson from Human Rights Watch. So Phil is joining us online. Thank you for joining us despite certain challenges that prevent you from leaving your home at the moment.
Yeah.
Phil, you've seen the report, you've heard the impassioned interventions from U Chaw Win and Haji Ismail. I'm asking you, what should international stakeholders be doing now?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last question. What did you say again?
The question is, what you've heard, you've seen the report, you've heard what's been said already. I'm asking you, what should international stakeholders be doing now? And don't hold back on the naming and shaming. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can do all that. I mean, this report gives an incredible snapshot in the daily lives of refugees in the camps in Bangladesh. It's been almost 5 years since we started this saga of these refugees in these camps. And when we talk about the international community, we need to talk about Bangladesh. We need to talk about Myanmar. We need to talk about also the various international donors and governments who have continually proclaimed that this is a crisis that is urgent and needs urgent solutions, but unfortunately continues to fall short on that. I mean, the international narrative has been to consistently thank Bangladesh for agreeing to open their borders in 2017 to receive the Rohingya. And I think we're all quite appreciative of that. But let's be absolutely honest. What was the other alternative? Was Bangladesh going to close its border to 800,000 people who were streaming out of Myanmar, fleeing crimes against humanity and acts of genocide? Was that going to be allowed? Was that going to be allowed to stand? I think the answer is probably not. And so the question that I have is, and this is very important report raises, is how long will the good deed that Bangladesh performed in 2017 by opening the borders be allowed to justify a growing list of abuses that are happening against the Rohingya now in the camps? And many of the issues that are identified in this report are in fact things that Bangladesh could help fix. The biggest issue, and this report glances over this but doesn't talk about it really significantly, is that Bangladesh has suspended education activities for most Rohingya in the camps. And depriving children of education is outrageous and appalling. Bangladesh has said that it's worried about the Rohingya children wanting to learn Bangla and stay in Bangladesh. But if you look at the outcome of this survey, all the families said that they want to go back to Rakhine State. No one is saying to interviewers that, oh, geez, yeah, I'm planning to stay around in Bangladesh and go find a job. People want to go back to Rakhine State. They want to go back to their homes if they're able to do so in safety and dignity and with equal rights and full citizenship. They don't want to stay in Bangladesh. And in fact, Human Rights Watch released a report back in 2018, and it's actually, the title of the report was a quote that came from one of the refugees. It's called "Bangladesh is Not My Country." And that really encapsulates the whole feeling of the refugees in that camp, these camps, that they want to go home if they can do so. So Bangladesh should allow the Rohingya to learn Burmese and Rohingya and use a full Burmese curriculum. You don't need to ask the Myanmar government for permission or cooperation. You can get everything you need online, and really allow the Rohingya people to fully educate their youth and prepare them for a future returning to Myanmar. They are going to learn Burmese and Rohingya languages. Those languages are not going to help them in Bangladesh. They need to be pre-positioned to go back, and they need to have the skills they need to succeed, and that means education. But the reality is that, as Ja Win pointed, many of the children who have been born in the camps, are now coming into kindergarten, and they're looking at a future where they don't see any education in their future, and this is something that is causing significant angst and anger amongst their parents, because for the Rohingya people, education is so important because they see it as a way to advance, and this is the thing that they can do while they're waiting in these camps, and it's being taken away from them by the Bangladesh authorities, and that's outrageous. The whole issue of fencing of the camps, this is really not necessary. And in fact, with these fires that have occurred there, the Bangladesh authorities are creating death traps for refugees who will not be able to get out if there's a fire. And we've already seen this. These fences are not only dangerous for the people, but they're also unnecessary, and they should be torn down. And, Bangladesh needs to rein in abusive security officers and make sure they do their jobs. That is a long discussion that we can have. I'm not even going to really talk about Basan Char, but maybe we can talk about that in the question and answer period, because I know time is running a little bit late here. But I would just say that, over 300 million US dollars and a ton of political commitment has been showered on the Basan Char project by Sheikh Hasina and the Bangladesh government. If all that investment and political commitment were used in the existing camps, think of what could be done. The international community, going to your question, Debbie, they've really let both Myanmar and Bangladesh off the hook far too often when it comes to the Rohingya. Bangladesh sees itself as being left holding the bag. There is a declining amount of international assistance. We consistently see shortfalls in the funding of the joint response plans that the UN comes up with. Usually those shortfalls are somewhere between 30 to 40% of what is requested. They don't get. I think that the funding is continuing to decline as international interest in these camps is slowly going away. It's going to, the sense of urgency, the sense of crisis is gone. And with that, that sense of international urgency and support that also is so critical to making sure that budgets remain high and support is provided. And with the military coup, the repatriation process is stalled, is going nowhere fast, although Bangladesh and Myanmar both maintain it's ongoing. So again, the international community is like, okay, nothing is changing in those camps. The situation is there. We can turn our attention somewhere else. And that is problematic. Even if the repatriation process did restart, it's important to note that many Rohingya do not feel safe to return under a military junta government, absent guarantees for their security. They return to homes, not camps or detention centers, and of course, full citizenship and respect for their rights. And to be honest, none of that is on the table from the Myanmar side at this time. And we've seen a further complicating situation, which is the Arakan army, which has now assumed de facto administrative and military control over much of Rakhine state. And they're saying, more politely than they have in the past, that now is not the right time for a major Rohingya repatriation, that it would destabilize the situation. So again, there's another break. So there's the existing situation in the camps here is not likely to change anytime in the next year or two, and probably even longer. So their priority needs to be made on making changes now in the camp, and that's what the international community should be focused on. And there's a number of key issues that were identified in this report that really require urgent attention. First is most basic needs of the Rohingya need to be taken care of. And this requires a renewed commitment from international donor agencies, governments, and NGOs to support the food, medicine, and other basic supplies that the Rohingya people need. It's astonishing to learn from this report that women and girls can't even get adequate hygiene kits. The shortfall between what the UN and other international agencies are seeking in terms of support and what they receive from governments is still scandalous. On education, Rohingya children should be able to study without hindrance in the Burmese language, and the education system should aim to educate to the highest level possible using the languages that these people will use when they go back to Burma. The problem is that Bangladesh apparently thinks that if it destroys the Rohingya education system, which it's done now as of December, and keeps children from learning, that will somehow discourage the Rohingya people from staying. And that is a wrong-headed, rights-abusing approach that should be condemned around the world. According to international human rights principles, it's also worth noting that refugees have rights to livelihood and work. And this is an important issue that has been identified by the refugees that the BHRN spoke with. The problem is Bangladesh is systematically denying them that, and the international community is doing nothing to protect that right. There should be some sort of program or scheme that enables Rohingya refugees to earn a living and provides vocational training. Again, the focus should be on programs that provide enough for a breadwinner to exist, to help support the family with their incomes, while also providing skills so that the Rohingya will need when they go back to Myanmar. And it would be important to be, for instance, training people as teachers, doctors, nurses, medical workers, and others who will help the refugees now and work for the Rohingya people in the future when they go back to Myanmar. But to get that going, you also have to have youth that are coming up through a functioning educational system in the camps, and that is not existing right now. So, it's really got to be started from bottom up in terms of the education and to end the restrictions that Bangladesh has outrageously imposed on Rohingya education in the camps. I think protecting violence in the camp is a huge issue, as 100% of the people told to be an HR researcher. What is clear is the human rights of the Rohingya refugees are not being protected against criminal elements in the community committing violence. But the problem is also the refugees don't feel that they can trust the Bangladesh government security forces in the camp, because those people too are also committing rights abuses. If you're going to deal with a problem of violence in this community, you've got to have a trusted policing force that can engage with the Rohingya community and do the kind of community policing that would allow violent elements to be identified and dealt with. But obviously that is so far from reality at this time. The international community needs to grapple with this problem instead of throwing up their hands, even if this results in some very uncomfortable conversations with the Bangladesh authorities, including those in charge in the camps. Just providing human rights training will not do much unless there's a political commitment by the Bangladesh authorities to reform the security forces operating in the camps. And the violence, including sexual violence against women and girls, is particularly appalling and needs urgent renewed attention from the international community. The problems that women identify need to be addressed. Things like providing adequate lighting at latrines at night, which of course this report has identified and previous reports have also identified. This is not rocket science. It simply requires political commitment and budgets to do it. And let's be honest, this is not the first time such issues have confronted long-term refugee women in camps around the world. So why are solutions not being found? My friend Ja Win has raised the importance of providing third country resettlement for Rohingya from the camps. But let's be clear on what's happened here. There was resettlement from the camps in Bangladesh before 2016, primarily to the United States. But that was suspended by Bangladesh, and it has not been revived. The fact that Donald Trump also came into power in 2017 meant that there was no real interest from the U.S. side in reviving that. Now that there's a new administration, maybe it could be looked at again. But the problem is Bangladesh believes that if it allows Rohingya to resettle to a third country, this will cause more Rohingya to come to the camps. And that's precisely what the Bangladesh government doesn't want. So that door is closed, and it will likely remain closed, not necessarily by the international community, but by Dhaka. Finally, I would just say that no one should forget the true origin of this crisis lies with the Myanmar military and its crimes against the Rohingya people. The international community needs to redouble pressure on Myanmar to recognize that. I think, of course, we're dealing with a situation where really it's one hand clapping because, of course, the Myanmar side, run by a military coup government, is not prepared to listen to anything the international community is saying to them at this point. But there needs to be international accountability, and those mechanisms need to continue. We'll see the International Court of Justice is going to be hearing more about Myanmar's violations of Genocide Convention. There's another hearing at The Hague later this month on February 21st. But importantly, there needs to be a UN Security Council referral of the situation in Myanmar to the International Criminal Court. And, message to London, the UK government, which is the penholder on UN resolutions, needs to find its courage to draft a resolution and bring it forward. Enough of the, meetings behind closed doors and saying that somehow that constitutes progress. It doesn't. There needs to be real action. And even if that means that resolutions go forward and face difficulties or tough conversations or opposition from other governments, the conversation needs to be had, and needs to be had in public. If Russia and China want to continue to defend the indefensible in Myanmar, they need to do so publicly. They need to say that they are on the side of Min Aung Hlaing, who has committed crimes against humanity against his people every day. I think the international community needs to apply pressure strongly right now on Bangladesh while it can. It has more leverage on Bangladesh than it does on Myanmar, but it can't let Myanmar off the hook at all either. And there has to be more pressure there as well, particularly on the Rohingya issue, which is, I think, in some ways being forgotten as the conflict between the CDM, PDF, and the military junta in Burma sort of takes center stage. There has been some progress in some fronts. The NUG, the National Unity Government of Myanmar, is saying some of the right things about the Rohingya, and we're hoping that some of those pledges will manifest itself in real action. But I think that the international community cannot allow Bangladesh to just sort of blame everything on Burma while refusing to recognize that it is doing some of the wrong things as well. Being a host comes with responsibility. It's not all about just receiving aid and then telling the international community to go look the other way. There has to be accountability on both sides of the border, in Myanmar and in Bangladesh, for the sake of the Rohingya people. So I'm very pleased that BHRN decided to do this report. I think it's a very timely intervention. It's a reminder of the important issues that are affecting the ordinary people, the ordinary refugees in those camps. And I hope that we can find a way to generate some action based on this report for some of the things that need to be done to improve the human rights and the basic living conditions of the Rohingya refugees in the camps. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to any questions that people have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Phil. For those people who are following us on Facebook Live, please feel free in the next few seconds to type in some questions. Chowin is monitoring any questions that come up. But I'm also opening the floor to friends who came in person. if any of you have questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask. There's a microphone right up back there. So please, yes, go ahead, identify yourself and ask your question.
Hello. Hello. The name is David Pfeiffer from the Süddeutsche Zeitung, almost unpronounceable in English. It's the largest selling serious newspaper in Germany. My question was, are there any other countries beside the US that offered to be a third country that might take in Rohingyas? Are there any negotiations with any countries? And are other countries helping particularly, or is it just the UN that you are addressing?
We, as far as we understand, there were some information about Canada were asked Bangladeshi government, and the Bangladeshi government is hesitating to allowing this because they don't want to become a more Rohingya will come for the third country repatriation, and the refugee number will increase. So for this reason, they don't want to allow. But this is clearly, damaging the human right for the people who are already suffering in the camp. They should have to go. They should have a right to move to a third country. So I think that more international pressure is needed for this matter.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, please.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I couldn't quite catch up. You said the UK is not pushing a resolution hard enough. Did I get that right in the UN? Or
Phil, you spoke about UK being the pen holder on the UN.
Yes. So at the UN Security Council, the UK is the duly designated pen holder for any sort of resolution on Myanmar. I don't know how that was determined, but that is the reality.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that London has consistently deferred on drafting a resolution and bringing it forward on Myanmar. In part, they claim that they are concerned that it would be vetoed by China or Russia, and that's entirely possible. Our argument has been, you should put all the information in the resolution, you should bring it forward, we should have the debate. If there's a decision not to go forward with a vote, because you think you're going to lose, well, that's a strategic consideration. But the idea that just because there's a veto threat that you don't even discuss the issue in public around an instrument, which would be a resolution to actually do something, as opposed to just talking, as has been the case in UN Security Council, increasingly behind closed doors, I should note. Used to be more public, now it's gone behind closed doors. The UN Security Council has lost the faith of the people of Myanmar. They basically look at the UN as a do-nothing organization. The UN country team has done a piss-poor job on terms of human rights and other speaking out on other issues as well. And so, when you look at the UN Security Council isn't doing much. There's no resolution. The UN country team is hiding. London and the other governments at the UN Security Council, the US, France, other like-minded countries in the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, others, they all need to stand up and actually demand that something happen. And that means creating an instrument, whether be a UN Security Council resolution, another UN General Assembly resolution. There was a UN General Assembly resolution, and that was done in part to pressure the UN Security Council to do their own resolution. And that landed in deaf ears in London. So, there needs to be a strategic rethink about how to approach the UN Security Council and the blockage there. It can't be just defer to a veto threat, because that's not acceptable.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you for that question. We've got a question online from Rebecca Root asking about the main recommendations to the international community made by the report. And Rebecca, thank you for your question. It's an opportunity to tell you it's been answered in the Facebook Live. The link at which you can download, this is actually the only hard copy currently existing of this report. because the Burma Human Rights Network has actually gone environmental and everything is available as PDF. So Chowin has put the link to the report in the Facebook Live. Do I see a gentleman approaching the microphone? Yes, please. One more question.
Yes, Sam Wright, club member. Thank you for the work and the report. It sounds like a hellhole, a prison camp, but one is also aware of a historical precedent in Cambodia when the Khmer Rouge were driven to the Thai border. They ran many of the camps, and they ran them as a criminal organization. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is that this horrendous nightmare that are the camps in Bangladesh have to do with Rohingya criminal gangs who, according to the French press, are multimillionaires from drug smuggling and people smuggling and so forth. And they're running a reign of terror. Is that a correct interpretation of what you've reported?
There are some Rohingya, Rohingya gangs, those who are operating in the camp. And also, if you look at their roots and their backgrounds, there is very shady things are happening behind the scene. As we see that in the camp, before they came to the camp, in the Rakhine state, when they were before Rakhine state, their actions are very suspicious, because what we realize is they are definitely connection with somewhat, they have a deal or link with the Burmese military in a way that they are protected by these, so-called Burmese military and that time, and they are creating the pressure on the community to move to certain direction that they want them to do. So this is a very internally destructive force has created.
I heard you say this earlier, appreciate it, but I'm uncomfortable with the implications.
Yeah.
By passing the buck back to the Burmese in Bangladesh, saying they're running Bangladesh, it's removing the responsibility from where you seem to have placed it in your report, which is on criminal Rohingya gangs.
Look, this report is not about the how we want to see the situation on the ground. This report want to see international community what is the reality on the ground. So the reality may not like us. We may not like to see that. We will not be comfortable to see that. And this is the aim of the report, for you and for us, for everyone, to not stay in the comfort zone and being comfortable that we did something for the Rohingya people, we are very nice people. No, you are not doing good enough. They are dying every time because of so many reasons, so many causes. But also, Rohingyas are human beings. We cannot expect them to move to do certain things as we expect them to do. So the report aim is to show the people, international community, what is really happening on the ground. Yes, definitely, we are not happy what we see. We are very uncomfortable to see the situation, especially that is a personal thing. For me to read this report for the proofreading, it took me 2 months. I cannot read that report. I push back many times to my researchers, because psychologically I feel very destructive when I read this report, right? So there are many friends of mine who push back this report. There are some close friends who told me that, could you please ask someone else to read? So of course this is the report, the reality is very tough. Yeah. So I appreciate your concern as well.
Sam, actually, the report doesn't exclusively blame the Burmese military junta for what's going on. But as Haji Ismail explained, the fact that refugees and displaced peoples, genocide survivors, can be trafficked from Bangladesh through Burma to Thailand and Malaysia implies a certain amount of collusion. And the fact that the root cause was that of the genocide of Rohingya was military impunity, that still is still inflicting crimes against humanity and atrocity crimes against other people in Burma at this point. And we can already see you very pointedly and appropriately highlighted the situation of the Cambodian camps in Thailand, that these are two situations separated by geography and decades.
Culturally.
Yeah, but in those systems, in those situations, what has happened is that the hosts have not offered refuge to refugees. They have not offered ensured civilian protection of refugees. And in fact, what has happened is that the perpetrators of the violence are colluding with the hosts in order to exploit the desperate situation and the hopes of people who have fled genocidal violence. So I think this is actually an indictment on our region as well, that we are so unfriendly to refugees, but at the same time, the international community and the regional community are do not have the political will to ensure their sustainable solutions, which is actually addressing the impunity of the military junta. So I think this is something we need to understand. We are not exclusively pointing the finger at one group or one stakeholder. It is a collusion, and it's the worst possible mix of factors. And at the end of it, we have the refugees, the Rohingya refugees, and potentially refugees from other ethnic communities in Burma being put in this situation.
Can I just add one or two things?
If I might just follow the thought, though.
Can I answer your question, Sam?
Sure.
Because I wanted to add that, you know, you're on about these criminal gangs, which are
those are the words I heard from the report. Yes, and
yeah,
criminal militia.
You're on about these criminal gangs, which certainly do exist, and have been taking advantage and basically greasing palms on both sides of the border, both in Bangladesh and Myanmar. But the reality is they're taking advantage of a very vulnerable situation that the Rohingya refugees find themselves in. I mean, they're without hope. You know, you're basically confined to temporary shelters, which are not allowed to be constructed as permanent shelters. Your children are not allowed to be educated. You don't have adequate food and education. Your women and children are threatened with violence, including sexual violence. You're not allowed to work.
I heard all that, Phil.
In those situations,
I heard all of that. Yes,
Okay.
in those situations, of course, people want to get out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised that these gangs exist. But what is quite clear is that there is no interest either among the Bangladesh authorities nor the Myanmar authorities in cracking down on them. And so, you know, governments have a responsibility. They are the duty bearers to protect rights. So let's not just blame everything on the gangs when the governments are in fact facilitating a situation where this happens.
Well, I think it's wise, everything you've suggested, and looking at the context. But the reality of the report is people living in terror day to day, feeling threats of violence, women being raped, just a hellhole that is controlled by these gangs.
But
And
the-
so
the-
to
the
deal
Sam,
with
yeah,
to
sorry,
deal
I'm
with the
going
problem.
to cut you off here because we're running out of time, Sam. Thank you so much for your intervention.
Thank you for your work. It's wonderful.
Thank you. But also remember that these gangs are allowed to operate in territory in camps that are fenced off by the Bangladesh authorities and supervised by the Bangladesh security forces. If you are a refugee in the camp, and I have been there, it's not so easy to walk out of the camp. Why is it easy for criminal gangs to walk in? So this is the reality that refugees have to face. Now, going back to the main recommendations to the international community, I'm going to give Chowin the final word before I wrap up.
I quickly want to respond, Rebecca Root, about the what is the aim of this report that pushing to international community. It is a wake-up call. We forgot Rohingya issues, and in the many ways, because current uprising in Burma, current situation in the internationally, we have forgotten that the 1.5 million people are suffering badly, that they are expecting us to do to help them. So international leaders, world leaders, decision makers, policy makers, this is their responsibility and moral duty as well, to consider to do something changes for these people. It is the changes doesn't mean throwing them to the Basancha Island. The decision and solution doesn't mean them impunity for the perpetrators. So these are the very important line we have to respond. International community to understand the situation, the life that living in the camp, how Rohingya people are suffering. Their suffering in the camp in Burma forced them to flee, but now the situation in the camp didn't give them any way to flee, and they will finish in this camp in many ways that the danger is surrounded them. So all we can do is we can support them. Their situation can be changed, because if they get enough support, enough help, proper treatment, their situation could change. So this is what international community need to do. That's what our report is aiming for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chowin. Let's not forget that the refugees in the camp in Bangladesh include many teachers, doctors, and professionally trained people who have not been allowed to use their skills to help their own community. Absolutely. So these are not a bunch of helpless people who don't know how to do anything for themselves. They are being prevented from protecting themselves and from getting livelihoods that can nurture their families. They are being prevented from reuniting with family members in the diaspora. They are Rohingya citizens of various countries in Europe, in the global north, in Asia, in Australia, Canada, US, you name it. There are Rohingya there who are keen to sponsor family members who have been heartbroken that the Bangladesh authorities refuses to let them leave Bangladesh to reunite with families overseas. And let's not forget, pretty much 80% of the Rohingya from Rakhine state are already in Bangladesh. I don't know what's the logic of fearing that allowing repatriation of Rohingya is going to be a pull factor. We've got another big push factor, which is the coup ongoing in Burma and atrocity crimes. So it's time to get logical and to wake up.
Thank you.
Thank you to Ucha Win for being here. Thank you to Haji Ismail, our speaker from the Rohingya Peace Network. And thank you to Phil Robertson, who's joining us from involuntary, unofficial house arrest. Thank you for joining us.
COVID lockdown.
Thank you, everyone, for being here physically. And for those of you who are joining on Facebook Live, thank you for your questions and your concern. Don't forget, you can download this report from www.bhrn.org.uk. You can share the Facebook Live. You can follow Burma Human Rights Network on Twitter at BHRNUK, at BHRNUK. Please keep your eye on Burma, keep your eye on the situation of the Rohingya. And I feel, as the moderator, I should wrap up with a quote from a young person, a young refugee from the Bangladesh camp. Yes, I think we'll be able to go back to Myanmar if the international community addresses our situation and helps to ensure a purely democratic government in Myanmar. Otherwise, I'm afraid that Myanmar will be like another Syria. And on that note, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the FCCT, Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand, for their excellent tech support. And see you another time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Debbie, for moderating. Thank you so much, everyone.